Okay, a quick bug fix before we get to the main topic of adding a pause menu. So at the end of the last video, as you saw when you clicked on the reset, all the hidden objects reappeared. The problem is the static variables don't reset, so you have to manually change that, which is easy. So in click control, which is where those static variables are defined, you want to put it into the start section. And we'll just paste them in there. So the four variables are the remaining balls, the total score, the time bonus, and the remaining items. So these four right here. Okay. Now the reason why we don't need to change this one is this one changes whenever you click on an object. So let's go ahead and save that. And also, remaining items was at 7. I never changed it to 8 when we added the backpack, so that made item number 8. And the other thing that needs to be fixed is backpack was appearing off to the left simply because it wasn't aligned right. So that's just a matter of grabbing object text and sliding it over. So now if we run this, so we'll click a few, see backpack is fine now, and it doesn't do score until you click at number 8, reset. And now score appears. So that was the quick bug fix. Now how to add a pause menu. So first thing I did was outside of Unity in an external program, I drew a new image using the same theme as this image, and that will be our pause menu window. So we're just going to drag and drop that into our scene. Now unlike the prefabs like the ring and the sparkle, we're not going to make this a prefab. Since there's nothing going on outside of the camera view, we're just going to push it off to the side, which actually makes the coding a little bit easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple text objects and attach them to this window. So this window is a parent, the text objects will be the child, and then when we move the window, it'll move the text objects as well. Let's first make the pause menu itself slightly transparent, just like the window at the bottom. So we click on color and just select somewhere along the alpha channel line. That's good. So let's go ahead and create those text objects now. So game object, create empty, and call this pause text, add component, mesh, text mesh, and type in pause menu. As you notice, it defaulted to -10 for some reason. Still don't know why text meshes do that. So set that to -1, and we will change character size to 0.15 so it's not blurry, font size 28, and font we'll choose Arial. Now all these other objects, if you recall, are in the negatives, so we want to make sure that pause menu text is on top and that this menu is below everything, above everything else except the pause menu. So we have to make one change. What we're going to do is the menu itself is going to be, so the menu window is going to be -1, but I believe on yours you'll also need to move the orbs to -1. I believe in the last video they were actually set to 0. So on yours, make sure you set the balls to -1 because I believe they're at 0 in the last video. Okay, so we have our pause menu window. We have text that reads pause text. Let's go ahead and copy that just to save ourselves a little text mesh creation. And this one we'll call resume text, because that's what you're going to click on to resume. And so for the text it will say resume. Slide that one down, slide it over. Also make it a little bit smaller than the title of the menu, so let's drop that down to like 24. And that's really just an aesthetic choice. You can do whatever you want with the size of the font size of the text. And now we need to add Physics 2D Box Collider, because we want to be able to click on resume. It has to be a trigger. And now we almost have our complete menu. Let's go ahead and add one more. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it in this video, but at least I want the text to be there. So copy, paste, and we'll call this quit text. Slide that down, and it's already got the collider box, so this we just have to choose quit and slide it over. And let's move them both down a little bit. Again, aesthetics. You can line this up however you want. So let's take those 3 text objects, drag and drop them onto the pause menu box. That way they all become children. So if you move pause menu, you move the children. Now, in the previous videos we mentioned that the dorm object is being used as a game master, and that the tracking clicks script is really being used to control some of the connectivity functionality. So let's continue with that. So let's go into the tracking clicks script, and we're going to add 3 new variables. One, we're going to add the key code variable, which will allow us to check to see if you're hitting the key that is used to pause the game. Typically that would be like the escape key, so that's what we'll use. So a variable for the escape key. A string variable that's just going to be wire n to detect whether or not, or should I say to track whether or not the game is paused, and then a transform variable because the dorm object needs to be aware of the pause menu object in order to manipulate it. So public key code pause click, public static string game pause equals n, public transform p menu object. So go ahead and save that. And they will show up over here. So for pause click, we'll choose escape. For P menu, we just drag and drop the menu onto it. And then we'll, oops, wrong one. We'll just slide that off the screen now. So now, dorm is aware of pause menu and can manipulate it. So, if pause click, if input dot get key down, and it has to be get key down, not just get key, or else it's a rapid fire, so we just want it to detect the click once. Input dot get key down, pause click, and what we want to do is we need to do a couple things. First, that new variable game pause needs to be set to y for yes, and we want to move this object. So p menu object dot get component transform position equals new vector 2 0 horizontal, because we want to be centered horizontally, but 1 vertical because we said we want it just above center. Save that. And then the second thing we're going to do is, if pause menu is equal to no, we want the pause menu to be off the screen. So that's just if game pause equal n then the same except we want it to be like -10. Now if you notice, to move the menu onto the screen we're using the keyboard click. We don't do that to move it off the screen. Here we're just looking to see if this has been set to no or N, because we're going to do that in a slightly different way. We're going to use that by clicking on resume. Now if performance is really important, this is technically, at least this part is an issue, because what this is saying is if this is no, then move it over there. Well, this is going to be no through most of the game, because it's not going to be paused for that, for long stretches. For the most part, you're playing the game, so this keeps being true and it keeps moving that there. So if you're really concerned about performance, you're only looking to do this when there's been a change in the status. Low resource game like this, I'm not worried about it. Just want you to keep that in mind. If you get into more intensive games, that you actually have to be careful that you're not doing something unnecessary over and over again, because technically that's what's happening. This is going to be true through most of the game, and it keeps moving the object there. You're not going to see flicker or anything like that, but it's doing a check that it really doesn't need to do. And so if you have lots and lots and lots of scripts doing that, it could impact performance. But like I said, in a low resource game like this, it's not an issue. So with the key click, game pause gets set to yes, and we've moved the menu. If game pause has been set to no, then we move the menu again. So now it's making this happen. So to make this happen, we need a new script. So we'll right click, create C#, and we'll call this text options, because I will probably use it for the quit functionality as well. Like I said, I might not do it in this particular video though. So click on resume text, so the actual text object itself. Put the text options script we just created on that and open it up. And in this, it's very simple. We're just going to do void on mouse down. It's a predefined routine, so make sure it's capital O, capital M, capital D, or else it won't work. And in this, we're just doing tracking clicks, so the name of the script, dot game pause, and it is being set to N because you've clicked on the resume. And that should be all that's necessary for the menu to appear and disappear. You could still click on the objects and the timer is still moving. So really this is just the pause menu itself that we've made work. So first of all, it's not over to the left enough. So we just need to change back to tracking clicks, and we'll make this -12. See, it's not there. Escape, and we now have a pause menu that appears and disappears, but doesn't actually pause anything. But that's the beginning. So, how to actually make it pause? Two things we said. One, we need to disable the collider boxes so clicks don't work. Two, we need to disable the score. Because we've already created that static variable, we now just have to check for that static variable being set to Y to do those disables. So let's go to, let's create, right click, create C#, and we'll call this disable clicks. You could call it disable, objects, whatever, but I'm trying to, I want the script to really be descriptive. So what we're going to do is in disable clicks, we're going to do one thing. In the update section, we're going to do one thing times 4. So if tracking clicks dot game pause equals Y, we want to do something. We want to disable. But we need to re-enable for when it's set to no. So that's the basic format. If track and click is set to Y, we do something. If it's set to no, we do something. Now, because some of our objects have box colliders and some of them have circle colliders, you have to take that into consideration too. If I'd used all box colliders, it would have been fine. If I'd used all circle colliders, it would have been fine. In fact, with some of these shapes, if you're making this because of the shape of the objects, you'd probably actually want to use a polygon collider as opposed to a box collider. Let's take a quick look. So gem is box, potion is box, scythe is box, spaceship is box. So what a polygon collider is, we won't make the change now, but when you do add component and you do physics 2D, you can see there's an option for polygon collider. By clicking on that, it gives you a more form-fitting collider box. That's really the only difference. I don't know of any other functional difference. It can be set to a trigger, so 6 one way, 1/2 dozen the other. But in your game, probably polygon collider would be better. That way, it's form-fitting. So, because I did not use polygon collider while I used box on some and circle on others, it causes us to have to do a little extra coding. So, add extra parenthesis here, because we have to check for something else. And game object dot name, so the name of the object the script is attached to, is not, so exclamation point equals is not equal to BALL, because the 3 balls have circle colliders. So if pause is yes and the game object is not ball, then get component, and this is box collider 2D enabled equals false. Now clearly you just have to rinse and repeat for the ball. So if it is equal to ball, so double equal sign, also equal to false. Now, I'm not going to use this one down here. This was just for demonstrative purposes, because to save typing, I'm just going to copy and paste these two. And it's just a matter of changing the yeses to nos and the falses to true. Because what happens is if you don't explicitly do box collider, oops, sorry, I made a mistake. This should be circle collider, so I said it, but I didn't actually do it. So circle collider 2D, so you can see it's actually its own component. So in this case, you have to be explicit. So let's review. So if this variable has been set to y and the object this script is attached to is not named ball, then the box collider should be disabled. If game pause variable is set to y and the object this attached to is named ball, then the circle collider has to be disabled. And like I said, if I had used the polygon collider instead of the box collider, this could actually just be two statements. One, if game pause menu equals yes, then disable the polygon collider. If tracking game pause is no, then enable the polygon collider. But that's one of the early decisions when you're making a game. You have to make sure it scales out well. So in this case, it causes a little extra coding. So now the collider boxes get disabled and enabled based on the status of that. So you can no longer cheat. You can no longer click on objects when the pause game pause is set to yes. And the other thing is the timer. So in the timer, that's controlled in click control, I believe. Actually, it is controlled in tracking clicks. So click control dot time bonus minus equals time dot delta time. So this is simple. Again, we'll just check for if game pause equals no. And in here I don't have to preface it with the name of the script because I'm in the script. And actually that's it. So this says if only change the time bonus if time dot delta time, only change the time bonus with this if this new variable is set to no. That should be everything. That should be, oops, we got an error. I missed an equal somewhere. So tracking clicks 3417. Oh, I just did it now. Sorry about that. Okay. So now that we've written that script out, we need to actually attach it. So gem, and then you can hold the control key while you're doing this. Potion, scythe, spaceship, ball, 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 backpack. So once you have those highlighted, you now need to drag and drop that new script onto it, which is disable clicks, we said. And we already took care of that. So that should be everything now. So let's run it. Do escape. And as you can see, cannot click on the objects behind it. We click on resume. Now you can click on the objects behind it, and your score reflects the fact that it was paused. So now to check that that really is being paused, okay, we're going to not pause it. We're just going to run through this really quick, and the score should be almost identical. As you can see, it was almost the same. So it shows that the pause did indeed delay the timer, because if we do this one more time and we do it really slow, like we'll click on some of these, but we'll wait on the last one, and it gets reduced 1 point per second. Number will probably be like in the 140s now. Yeah, see, so you know it's working, so that should do it. So you now have a pause menu. It prevents people from clicking on the objects while the pause is there, and it pauses the timer so your score doesn't get reduced. And the only other thing would be to do the quit functionality. We can do that in a separate video though.